We're looking at huge market opportunities, market sizes. We're looking for great teams, looking for sort of, industry expertise, any sort of unfair advantage around go to market.
Peter Saddington, your big game hunter. And guys, we have our sights on someone special today. Only a mother could invest in this idea.
Made this like super artistic.
That is actually absolutely correct. And that's a very, very astute assessment, actually.
True startup story, guys. You got it. Your company just got seed round financed. Congratulations. You're going to the moon. But now you have to scale. You found great talent out in California, New York, Georgia, and even Eastern Europe. So what communications platform will you be using to ensure your international team is always aligned? Well, the answer is easy. Slack.com for Teams. We've used Slack for all of our previous startups, and they've supported us in tremendous ways. And we want to give them a thanks today for supporting VCHunting.com. Did you also know that Slack is a great tool for personal use? Yeah, I use my own personal Slack channel to drop in documents, notes, to-dos, and follow-ups to ensure that my workflow throughout the day is right on course. I promise you, if you try out Slack.com for personal use, you'll end up using it for your team as well. Go to Slack.com to check it out. Welcome everybody to season 3 of VC Hunting with me, Peter Saddington. You guys know that we're always on the hunt for some great stories in venture capital, and I have a great guest for us today. It's Paul Veradittakit. He is the crypto investor as well as blockchain expert at Pantera Capital. Thanks so much, Paul, for joining the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. I had a little bit of issues with the name, and I apologize, Paul. But let's just jump right in. I got a couple of questions. First and foremost, tell us a little bit about your story into venture capital. I know that you've been with Pantera Capital for a while now, 7+ years. So give us a little bit of history around yourself.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, I'm originally from Los Angeles. I've been in the Bay Area now for about half my life. I went to UC Berkeley, graduated from there. Like many other folks, not really quite sure what I wanted to do. I mean, I thought about going to law school, worked for a law firm for about a year and a half. And, again, this story is going to be sort of convoluted in terms of how I got into VC. But, I worked at a law firm, decided, hey, I didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't want to go through 3 years of hell. And I didn't really particularly like my job, sort of in the legal industry. I just didn't feel like it was a fit for me. I wanted to be a bit more like, sort of like relationship driven and a bit more in terms of just diving into business and finances and operations, and a little bit less on the sort of legal side. And so, I joined a litigation consulting firm, did that for a couple of years, working on litigation cases for Fortune 500 companies, doing a ton of financial analysis and modeling and things like that. And, then I coincidentally got into startups, being in the area. A couple of my friends were starting companies, and decided to help out a couple, doing business development and growth, and really just got my hands dirty. And that was the best thing that I could ever done. I mean, I gained so much experience, and I got to attend TechCrunch Disrupt, and I was like, man, like, this is so awesome. Everybody's just laser focused on building like the next big thing. And like, how do I get more involved with this? And it was coincidentally, I was looking through different job postings, like thinking about joining a startup, and I came across this one position, 2010, analyst for venture capital. And this was a corporate VC fund focused on mobile. And so my thinking was, man, like, I think mobile is going to be huge. And to be able to be focused on mobile, investing into mobile apps, mobile infrastructure, that's a great way to get in, because like, man, if I've never done this before, might as well have that focus, learn from people that have been operators and have done it before. And so I jumped right in and kind of got my feet wet, learned about like term sheets and, how to source and how to build brand and how to manage portfolio companies. And a lot of it was just kind of trial and error, because the partners that I was working with, like, they were sort of emerging managers themselves. And so really learned a lot from my peers. And, moved up from analyst all the way up to senior associate. And then for the last 6 years, I've been really just kind of, going full steam ahead with blockchain. I came across Pantera and, felt like it was a great platform. Dan was a hedge fund guy. I was a venture guy. We're launching venture funds. I got in there, worked my way up, and basically sourced most of our deals, executed them, built up the brand, portfolio management, helped build up a team around us. And now we're managing $600 million, all focused on cryptocurrencies and blockchain. We've got multiple funds, multiple strategies, and we're just we're doing whatever we can to be thought leaders and try to push the space forward.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's really interesting because Dan Morehead started, I think it was a hedge fund in 2003, and then it kind of migrated or merged into cryptocurrency in 2013. And you joined Pantera Capital in 2014. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much right after he got started on the crypto side of things. I joined pretty early on and really just kind of helped build out the early stage investment strategy. I'm one of the 3 main partners there, me, Dan, and Joey Krug, who's the founder of Augur. And it's been great. I mean, if you talk about like strong but complementary teams, you can't get more complementary than, a guy that started one of the first Ethereum crowd sale, Augur. Got myself who's done probably more deals and more VC stuff in the entire space. And you got Dan, who's, man, you got a guy that's worked at Tiger Management, getting into cryptocurrencies. I mean, we just had our investor call talking about coronavirus and the effect it has on markets. I mean, everybody wants to hear from the global macro guy, right? I mean, he's going to have like so much insights on what's going on from his, 30 years of managing billions of dollars.
So were you always into cryptocurrency, or was this one of those things that just emerged to you as you joined Pantera and you kind of got wind of it and got excited about it? Did you always have a feeling around cryptocurrency before you joined Pantera? Or was Pantera really your first kind of initiation into the cryptocurrency blockchain world?
I think I'm late to the game, but I think a lot of people would say that I'm
I don't think so.
I thought it was late. I was like, oh man, like 2014, there's a lot of guys that were already talking about it in 2011, 2012. And, for me, like I heard about it my first time, and I still talk to this guy too. His name's David Chen at Lightspeed. So it was him and Jeremy Liu that were, doing some early investments into, blockchain.com and LedgerX and all these other companies. And, we would hang out at these VC events, and he's like, oh man, like, what deals are you doing? We asked each other, and he's like, oh yeah, like I just did these like 4 blockchain deals, Bitcoin deals. And I was like, man, I started reading about it. I was like, this stuff's crazy. Like, no one's gonna be able to understand this, let alone like be able to use this. But, the more that I kept reading about it, I actually interviewed early at Coinbase thinking that I wanted to go back into operations. So that was already another impetus to like read more. And the more that I read about it, and this was like probably like, let's say August of 2013, the more that I was just like, man, there's a lot of things that need to be built out in terms of infrastructure and education to get this going. But man, if it just solves the store of value use case, I thought that was already pretty compelling. And then bringing financial services to the unbanked, I thought was another compelling piece. And then remittances was probably the third compelling piece that I thought was, really interesting about this. Those 3 use cases are trillions of dollars. And so I was like, man, like, if it has even if it has a small percentage of disrupting those use cases, that's massive. And no one's looking at this, which is like the best time to get in, right? And so I was like, well, hopefully I know within a year or 2 if this is gonna, have any legs whatsoever. And so, I might as well give it a chance right now. If it doesn't work out, I'll move on to my next thing. But if it works out, man, this is a tremendous opportunity. So I looked at it from a VC point of view, where it's like the market size is so large. It seems like there's some initial traction. Some smart people are around this. It's worth a shot, man.
So you brought up this idea of Bitcoin as a store of value as one of the value propositions that kind of kept you here and got you excited about cryptocurrency. Certainly during the 2017 bull run up and then the doldrums of 2018, as well as the continuation of the doldrums of crypto into 2019 and being tested in 2020 with everything that's going on with
Yeah.
COVID-19. There's been a lot of articles about whether Bitcoin is still truly a store of value with everyone cashing out. Do you still see that to be a true?
Yeah, no, we still think of it as, so far we think that it is the cryptocurrency that has nailed that use case. We'll see what
Mm,
happens going forward, but we are pretty bullish that it will be. Even during, again, number one, like, even though people said, hey, it's gonna get hacked, it's never going to work, people are never going to buy into it, year over year it continues to grow in value. And every single time there's sort of a financial crisis or a macro event, people do flee to Bitcoin.
mm,
I think what happened recently was sort of I wouldn't even know, it's a macro event, but it was like a black swan event. All right. And
yeah,
and
that's
so it's
fair.
one of those things where, it's sort of impossible for even gold and Bitcoin to sort of hold up when, you know, we haven't seen anything like this in like decades. And so people are basically both trying to flee into cash
Mm,
just as a short-term thing. And then also there's a bunch of other things around the crypto space. People are over leveraged on different platforms, BitMEX. There's a
for
couple
sure.
of scam tokens like Plus Token that are still out there that people have a ton of Bitcoin and tokens that are trying to liquidate into Bitcoins and liquidate out of Bitcoins. And so when things like that happen, like this sort of black swan event, all these things just kind of come into play and people are just kind of like panic selling. But
Mm,
as we've seen already more recently, once the things start stabilizing a little bit with government actions, things like that, people start moving back into Bitcoin. They're like, okay, well, when this starts improving, things like Bitcoin that aren't necessarily tied to sort of fundamental metrics are really going to be a safe haven for, again, sort of a diversification of assets and sort of speculation. And so that's why, like, we are bullish that Bitcoin is going to come out of this even before any of the cryptocurrencies and even compared to other asset classes.
for sure. And Paul, you're giving us some great reasons to hodl on and hodl strong for sure. You seem to be unfazed by all of this, having been in cryptocurrency as long as you have. So for all of our viewers and listeners out there, Paul is one of the what does a Trace Mayer say? The hodlers of last resort. Is that fair? Are you one of the hodlers of last resort?
I mean, since 2014, I've seen Bitcoin go as high as 20,000. I've seen it go as low as $139. And
Mm-hmm.
the way that I think about it is, it's one of those asset classes where it just has such a potential for high multiples that
Mm-hmm.
it's a great way to diversify. It's non-correlated with traditional markets. You should put a single percentage of your net worth in there, and something that if it goes nowhere, that's fine. You're okay to lose it, but it has potential for those extreme returns, and you just put it in there. You forget about it. You check in on it in like 3-4 years, 5 years, and see what happens. And you take opportunities like this when there are these events that no one can really control. And it's just like the traditional stock market's going to be. I mean, it's like you're at Costco. I mean, everything's at like a 40-50% discount. I mean, this is the time to buy.
Did you know that there's even more value than just audio or video? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at VC Hunting, and make sure to sign up for the VC Hunting newsletter, where you'll be able to get weekly news on venture capital, startups, founder stories, and the occasional wisdom extracted from Peter's brain. Go to vchunting.com to sign up. And now, back to the episode.
That's one way to put it. It's really been an interesting journey. So I got into crypto in 2011 when Bitcoin was about $2.50 or so. And so I, like you, have seen the ups and downs, and I'm not too phased. During the 2016 and 2017 period, it was the year of the ICOs, right? It was the year of massive growth, lots of altcoins. In 2018, we started to see new mechanisms for investing, STOs, as those financial
Yeah,
institutions getting in the game, as well as in 2019, a big year for regulation and larger meta plays by the governments worldwide. And now we're in 2020. So give us your perspective, if you can. And I know it's just a guess because no one knows the
sure.
future. But in terms of our adoption curve, where do you think
Yeah.
we are in 2020, and what is needed to move us to more adoption as we move into the 2020s and beyond?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think 2017 was just
It's crazy.
crazy moment and something that I think we'll never see again. It's just insane. And so, I think it was a great time though, because, even though we have some scams and that sort of thing, and,
Sure.
obviously we made a lot of money, but, it brought more mainstream awareness of
Mm,
cryptocurrency. And maybe, some of it was great. Some of it maybe, again, our moms and grandmas were starting to gamble in this, and it's probably not the best thing, but a lot of entrepreneurs that we're still waiting on the sideline for what they figured was going to be that moment. They thought that that was the moment, and they're coming in, and therefore, that's kind of the impetus for some of these sort of next generation funds that sort of came after us, like the Andreessen Horowitz, like setting up their
right.
own crypto fund. Some partners from Benchmark and Sequoia starting their own funds, and so I think people saw that, like, now that we're seeing all the best talent come into this space, this is a time to really be investing, because the market crashed after that, and
Mhm.
now we're sort of in this phase where, okay, like, entrepreneurs that see the potential because of the education that happened in 2017 are now building, and valuations have dropped. Let's go in there. Let's invest into these guys that have the right mindset. And 2018, 2019 has been great. People have been building.
Mhm.
And 2020, I think people are starting to, or 2019, people are starting to catch up in terms of regulators.
Right.
And some of them have taken, some drastic approaches in terms of India, but they're sort of loosening up. But like, there is becoming more and more regulations around the world, in addition to what we think is actually positive, the SEC,
Mhm.
coming out and saying, hey, we actually want to try to work with entrepreneurs. We want to listen to their needs and maybe even create some sort of a safe harbor. While the CFTC has been even better, where they're like,
Right.
okay, we are going to grant licenses now. We are going to allow derivative exchanges. We think this is important for the ecosystem. All this could potentially lead to an ETF. So I think regulation-wise, it's coming around, and it just takes a little bit of time for those guys to get educated. And they're continuing to reach out. We're registered with the SEC
Right.
as an RIA, so we're constantly educating these guys. But where we are right now in terms of the ecosystem is, you know, for a lot of these cool applications to be built, I mean, outside of speculation, I mean, I think there is going to be, some of the first consumer applications are going to be like better
Mhm.
better ways to, get into this space and be able to manage assets within this space, and in sort of like Robinhood sort of style
Right.
of and everything to portal for DeFi, all different types of wallets and entry points, and servicing different types of assets, whether they're STOs, NFTs, backed as launch something consumer. I think those make a lot of sense for sort of custody and speculation asset management. But beyond that, to go into other decentralized use cases, we're going to still need that infrastructure to be built. And the infrastructure encompasses a few different things. We need scalability. I mean,
I was
Ethereum
gonna say that. Yep.
is not handling it right now. We need, maybe it's Polkadot, maybe it's Near Protocol. We need guys who can actually get this out there. And then we also need, just space, get these use cases actually working at scale. And then second of all, I think for a lot of developers that aren't going to be focused on scalability, then you're going to need different tools for these
Mhm.
guys. And tools could range from, well, we're already building on Ethereum, it's not servicing us. I mean, maybe it will end up servicing us, but if you want to move to different platforms, how do you make it easy for us to move our product over without having to rewrite the entire thing, right? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so I would consider that, sort of a, EVM compatibility, or being able to port your application from, one to another. I mean, we had similar instances of that in the mobile industry, where like,
Right.
and like being able to have like easy ways to do storage, like parse, being able to have SDKs to
For
move
sure.
between iOS, Android, all that kind of stuff, and App Annie, so data analytics. So all of these different applications and tooling for developers need to be built on top of these blockchains, and I think that's going to be sort of needed. So we're kind of waiting for that, and I think the third thing would be fiat on ramps, and that kind of has
Uh,
to work with regulations or basically guys that have accumulated enough licenses and built up the wire, for instance, and it enables like people to easily move from ACH to credit card to debit card. And so I think those three things for sure. I mean, it's got to be the scalability, it's got to be the tooling, it's got to be fiat on ramps, and the customer experience. I mean, that's basically it too. I mean, having the right guys that can actually develop that.
I love it. I love it. You pretty much touched on all the little points that I had written down here in my notes, from scalability to tooling, SDKs, developer toolkits are certainly needed. Now we've been talking a lot about that and easily for the last 3 years about scalability. CryptoKitties wasn't it, guys. It wasn't the end all be all. Certainly tooling needs to be improved. And so what it sounds like, if I can kind of jump in on your words here, correct me if I'm wrong, we're really relying on great engineering and great development talent to start building these applications, tools, and better inroads to crypto. Because we've been hearing that and we've been asking for it a lot, but let's be intellectually honest. From 2017 to 2020, your grandma still pretty much has a hard time getting on board, and that's still a use case that still needs to be solved. Is that fair?
It is fair, and the number one thing that we're hearing from either scalability platforms or tooling platforms is basically the need for talent. And in a way, with cryptocurrencies sort of being in a bear market, it's great in that, those that are coming onto cryptocurrency companies are doing it for the right reason. And now that we have like the traditional markets coming down too, I think it may enable those guys to get even more talent coming from the other side. That's like, okay, well, now that everything else is down, but crypto should go up, we should be getting into a crypto company. But it is tough because you do have to do a ton of education. A lot of great talent just isn't a believer yet in crypto, and if you don't believe in basing the company, then you're not going to join. So I think that's the gap right now, is like, we got to continue to do our part to get the widest audience excited about cryptocurrency, and obviously the price is going to be helpful too. And if that comes to fruition, then the top talent will come into these companies, and we'll be able to everything from build quicker to raise more capital, and it's a snowball effect.
And so in terms of Pantera, right, obviously you guys are deeply into the crypto world. And so what are you guys looking for? Are you guys looking for great talent? Talk to us a little bit about your thesis of what you're looking for. Is it talent? Is it ideas? Is it tools? What is your driving factor for your thesis when it comes to investing in a new startup or a new entrepreneur or a new company? What are you guys specifically looking for?
I mean, it's a combination of being thesis driven, and we've already talked about what we need for this ecosystem, and that's part of our thesis, is trying to find companies that can enable those three things to be met. And then sometimes it's opportunistic too on the consumer side. I mean, man, I did not predict Snapchat would be as big. I did not predict Twitter was going to be as big, and so for those, we're just going to be a bit more reactionary. Sometimes you're not quite sure what consumers are really going to jump on, and then it comes down to, well, what teams are behind those, what experiences they have, what the numbers, the metrics, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, I mean, when we're looking at opportunity, it's a pretty simple overlap with the traditional markets. I mean, we're looking at huge market opportunities, market sizes. We're looking for great teams, looking for sort of industry expertise, any sort of unfair advantage around go to market, technology differentiation, and we just like guys that we enjoy working with. I think for us, we're we sort of fit the the crypto mentality where we're just always working. We're just always working, and we just want guys to be on the same level. And I think
Always grinding, man. Always grinding.
Yeah, Telegram, whatever platform you got, I'll be on it. So
Awesome. Well, speaking of tools and talent and these types of things, well, what's your favorite cryptocurrency application today, and why? What about this your favorite cryptocurrency application makes it useful, or makes it popular, makes it valuable for the future of cryptocurrency? Tell us, give us a little bit of inside of your brain. What's your favorite cryptocurrency app today?
yeah, I think a lot of people probably have, some cryptocurrency. Maybe it's just Bitcoin. Maybe it's a few. Maybe it's a ton. Maybe you did every single ICO out there because you sort of you kind of jumped up.
Didn't we all go through that though when we jumped into crypto? Didn't we all just invest in ICOs and start? We got on a Telegram chat and they're like, "Yo, this BitConnect thing." Right?
Yeah. And so for me, like, it's probably not a surprise of an answer, but I still think that it's such a compelling product. Something like Blockfolio. I mean, they're just,
That's useful.
it's just so useful. I mean, you got cryptocurrencies, you might as well track it. And now they're creating a platform for, token projects to
Right.
communicate to their specific users. And eventually, like, being able to, if that's what's keeping those users engaged, and then you can kind of layer on different actions around like trading and asset management and taxes and whatever, staking, lending. But like, you got to find the pain point and build off of it. I think one pain point of what people do most in this industry is they're always checking prices. You know what I mean? So I think that's a pain point. Obviously, I think things around custody are a pain point too. So obviously, I use ledgers and Trezors, and all those things are pertinent. And
Mm,
but I think that application from a software perspective makes a ton of sense.
absolutely. You guys invested heavily in Bitstamp, is that right? And so Bitstamp went through its ups and downs. Obviously, had a hacking, which I believe I covered in my YouTube channel. But I was just going to ask, what are some of the lessons that you learned from this investment? Because it's been a while now.
Yeah, the lessons learned is that I think with every uh, strategy in this space, I mean, you have two routes you can take. You could probably take the Binance route and just kind of go out there, be innovative,
Right.
and maybe kind of do what you need to on the regulatory side, versus Bitstamp sort of being kind of like the most buttoned up in terms of regulations, and
Hmm.
kind of getting licensed all over Europe, and that sort of thing. And so I think number one, like, it really depends on the entrepreneur, their risk profile. I mean, hey, you don't want to go to jail, and you have a family, those things like that. So I think the lessons learned is, you got to find that right balance, and that's the path that Bitstamp wanted to take, and they've taken a geographic approach, and so
Mm,
I think that's also pretty good. I mean, Binance is in Asia; they should focus on getting guys over there. Bitstamp has a unique advantage of having, really great, banking and fiat access on the European
right.
side. Focus on that market, figure out what that market needs, and try to create more and more features and products that's sort of geared toward that market. And so far, I mean, they haven't listed a ton of tokens. They haven't done, you know, uh,
Yeah, they haven't been that promiscuous. I mean,
they haven't, yeah. So it's a strategy.
I was a bit surprised, to be quite frank, with the promiscuity of Coinbase. I thought they were going to be one of the more conservative American-based, fiat on-ramps, crypto exchanges of sorts. Okay, I don't know if you have an opinion on that, but I was personally surprised that they moved to, back, what was it, in 2017 August, when they did Bitcoin Cash, and then they started moving into Ethereum Classic and all these other coins that obviously people have opinions on, and these types of things. But I didn't know if you had opinion on Coinbase. I really believe that they were going to be one of the more conservative exchanges out there. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think with Binance, like, that's kind of how they got to market, right? Like, hey, we're
Mm,
gonna be fast moving. We're gonna list as many tokens as possible. We're gonna go out there. We even launching an exchange token, which has done extremely well. I mean, that was pretty
mhm.
innovative, right? I mean, those guys
Was.
actually tested the waters on things. While Coinbase, I think they've done things the right way. They started off with the wallet, and then they realized, hey, well, the exchanges are making a ton of money. We got to get into that. Let's piggyback off other people's liquidity. And then, I think rightly so, they have been focusing on, because they do have the licensing, because they have the brand, the money is around larger pools of capital and around institutions. And so instead of, sort of going wide, they try to go after like the larger pot of capital, and therefore want to make sure that they have those licenses so that they can do custody and other sort of things. I think eventually though, especially when, the relationship has been built and, consumers are even more comfortable with getting into more than just Bitcoin. Right now, there's probably not a huge demand for a lot of other altcoins, but once it gets to that point, they're going to use earn.com. They're going to help educate, folks about investing into different assets. And then they're going to slowly roll out a good compliance process to kind of get more and more tokens involved. And then of course, everything from like lending and staking. I mean, it's just obvious what they're going to do. And I think for them, it's just like, we can't do, especially with like their Toshi product, they try to do so much, or they've tried to stamp out certain areas so that other startups can't get into it. But then like, I think eventually like, it's like, okay, well, we know what our focus is. It's going after the institutions first and larger pools of capital. And then we're going to go wider, versus you have like Binance USA and they're like, okay, well, they have a lot more tokens out there. And so it's kind of that ethos, right? It's like, Binance is going to be more sort of retail will driven first, which is all of Asia. And then Coinbase, well, again, like it's certainly limited in the US in terms of speculators. And then you just go after the bigger pots of capital.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I know I want to make sure that we cut this off at the right time, because I know that your time is important. I got a couple more questions, and I think one that a lot of our audience would really love to hear from you. The first question out of two here is, why will cryptocurrency rule the world in the future? Give us your projection.
I think it's just going to be a big part of our lives. I mean, I'm going to say that it's going to work hand in hand with fiat currencies. We're not going to have that go away, but, there's so many different, I feel like there's so many different intermediaries, and starting off with like banks and, those guys basically, using your data, those banks basically like controlling flows in and out of countries. I mean, all of that is just, it's ridiculous. I mean, I think that, they're taking such high fees and having so much leverage. Cryptocurrency really evens out the playing field and enables, financial access for a bunch more people. So I feel like that's inevitable. It just gives people financial freedom. Beyond that, I mean, whether it's like the Googles and the Facebooks, everything around like data privacy and basically all of the value sort of, getting monopolized by these central intermediaries, I think it makes a ton of sense for those guys to get disintermediated. And, something like cryptocurrency and blockchain makes a ton of sense, where, you have decentralization and you have an economic layer to incentivize all parties to basically disrupt. I think marketplaces and anything where, there's just so much control and so much of the economics going to centralized parties, it makes a lot of sense for cryptocurrencies to sort of disrupt. So I think we're going to see a lot of use cases get disrupted. And I think this could really be a foundational layer for, sort of the next generation of internet.
Well, I love it. I think a lot of people get into cryptocurrency from the worldview and the philosophy worldview of removing the intermediaries, removing banks, credit cards, and all these entities that kind of control and leverage our data and use us in many ways to profit without our permission. And obviously, blockchain and Bitcoin is a permissionless system that allows us to transact freely. So what you're saying, if I can put it in a nutshell, is that the philosophy of cryptocurrency, the philosophy of Bitcoin still is compelling a decade later after the white paper was written. Is that fair?
Very fair. Yeah, that's a great summary.
Awesome. Well, last question here. We do a little bit of digging, and I went back on you. In 2000, on Twitter on February 19th through 23rd on 2012, you got sucked into Linsanity. You said Linsanity is here. Here we go. Linsanity. So I'm just wondering, are you still a big Jeremy Lin fan?
I'm just a huge supporter of Asian Americans, man. I feel like we got to support each other.
I love it.
it was great. I mean, whether it's the Fung Brothers on YouTube, whether it's like other Asian American entrepreneurs. I mean, Gold House is really cool too. It just gets a bunch of entrepreneurs together, and like Crazy Rich Asians. I mean, so I think it's one of those things where we're kind of coming up, and especially in media, and we got to support each other. So I'm all for it.
I think I remember, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. On your LinkedIn profile, you were part of like the Asian club or the something club in university. Is that right? Is that correct?
Yeah. There's an Asian interest fraternity, or like.
You do have a lot of that Asian pride. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Being Asian myself, I'll take the support. I'll take the support. That's
Awesome.
awesome. Well, thanks so much, Paul, for this awesome conversation. It was life-giving. I'm going to give you the final word here. Where can our audience all around the world find more information about you and Pantera Capital?
Yeah, Pantera Capital, our website, panteracapital.com. Myself on Twitter, it's at Veradittakit. I also write a blog too. It's called Veradict, and it's a great way to sort of, stay in touch with what's going on in the industry and where my thoughts are and some of the unique insights that I'm seeing.
Awesome. Well, all of this information is going to be below in the show notes, guys. Thanks so much again, Paul. I appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Hey, thank you so much.
Well, wasn't that an awesome conversation with Paul Veradittakit? I got his name right, guys, this time, and it was the first time. In the beginning of our interview, I mangled it, guys, and usually I'm pretty good at last names. Man, what a fun conversation, a life-giving conversation, exciting conversation with Paul. It's just great to connect with another blockchain and Bitcoin enthusiast, someone who believes in the future of cryptocurrency and believes in the future of blockchain. It's one thing to have conversations with other YouTubers and other influencers in the cryptocurrency space, but talking with an investor, someone like Paul Veradittakit, or as you guys might remember, Sean Cheng from Consensus. You guys can check out the archives for my conversation with Sean Cheng over there. But it's just great to talk to someone who has a different perspective, someone who's actually investing in these companies, spending time doing diligence to make sure that these companies aren't just your beat connects or your scams out there, but real teams building real value in the cryptocurrency space. And certainly for me, as building a venture-funded cryptocurrency app, for me, I'm a huge believer. Look at me, I'm wearing the blockchain shirt here. But it was great to hear his history. He kind of fell into the Bitcoin and blockchain world. Obviously, he was convinced by Pantera Capital and Dan Moorhead, who started that back in 2003. And then moved into cryptocurrency in 2013. But it was just great to hear his perspective. Now, there's almost all of the questions that I had were around cryptocurrency, from what's going on with in terms of adoption. And I love the fact that he pointed out so many great things, from we still need great scalability. We still need great developer tools. We still need great fiat on-ramps. And one thing that I've been one thing that I've been talking about for years now is good user experience. One of the things that I believe that Bitcoin and blockchain, or let's just say cryptocurrency apps in sum total, what we're missing are great user experiences. Great experiences that are easy to use for your grandma or anyone that is just not fluent in technology. And so we certainly need that. So for anyone out there, if you're an engineer, developer, or if you're building in the cryptocurrency space, make sure that you check out Paul. Make sure you check him out. Paul with Pantera Capital. Maybe they could fund you. Which, by the way, they didn't fund us. They're just waiting, and he told me this at the end of our interview. He's just waiting for the next round. So maybe Paul will invest in us in our next round, guys. We gotta survive. We gotta survive these crypto winters and this coronavirus that's going on. Well, if you want more information on this interview and the field notes that I got on Paul, make sure that you find your way over to vchunting.com/Paul Veradittakit. Veradittakit. Guys, I apologize. It's just one of those days. And you know what? I'm not even going to edit this out, because that's life. I'm not perfect. Guys, thanks so much. This was a great conversation, and I hope to have Paul on again soon. I'll see you guys next time. Veradittakit, guys. Veradittakit.